Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Today we're going to be doing something weird. Steam just came out with a new handheld device. It is, I guess, it's not technically out yet, but it is coming out, and I'm actually kind of excited about it. A little bit excited about it, not like super excited, but excited enough that I'd like to talk about it with everyone. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch this first look with the Steam developers, and the Steam developers they're basically talking about this. I believe it's with IGN, and they have like 31 big questions to answer. So we're going to watch this. Then we're going to go over the specs of the device. We're going to talk about it together, and we're going to go over what it could possibly be used for. Maybe some Diablo. As you can see, I'm wearing my NVIDIA Shield TV Pro shirt. Actually, I got this with the NVIDIA Shield Portable back in 2013. And the NVIDIA Shield Portable, like I got it sitting around here somewhere, is oh, there it is. Come here, sir. Oh Lord, I'm knocking everything over trying to get it. The NVIDIA Shield Portable, if you remember, was a handheld that came out from NVIDIA, and very similar to the way that this device was trying to leverage the Android operating system, except for the Steam device is going to be using, from what I understand, Linux. I guess we're going to find that out. So without further ado, let's watch this little. I think it's only like 6 minutes long or 8 minutes long, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Ryan McCaffrey, this is IGN. We are at Valve talking about the Steam Deck. I have three fine gentlemen from Valve, from the Steam Deck development team here. Guys, let's see, 31 rapid fire, just frequently asked questions. People are going to see this and have questions. I figured we'll just go around real quick and get all the big stuff answered. Number one, I'll let you pick who answers what. First of all, what's in it, CPU, GPU-wise? What is in this thing?
So there's 4 cores of AMD Zen 2 CPU with 8 logical threads and 8 CUs of AMD RDNA 2 GPU. These are all the latest architectures.
Perfect. How much RAM's in it?
16 gigabytes.
All right, I like the synchronous
Yeah,
answer.
nice.
That's good. Storage-wise, what are we looking at?
We have 3 SKUs, and it'll be 64 gigs, 256 gigs, and 512 gigs.
Is the storage upgradable?
The internal storage is not, but every deck will come with a SD card slot, so you can put an SD card slot, whatever size you want, whenever you want.
Price?
The 64 gigabyte storage will be $399. The 256 gigabytes will be $529. And the 512 gigabyte will be $649.
Is there a difference in performance with regard to the storage speed, like flash memory versus NVMe as you step up and go higher?
Yeah, as we go higher, the read and write speeds are going to be faster.
Screen size and resolution, what are we looking at there?
It's a 7-inch screen. It's a 720p native resolution.
The aspect ratio is 16 by 10, so the exact resolution is actually 1280 by 800.
Battery life, that's a big one in any handheld device. What are we looking at there?
Well, there's a wide variety of experiences there. It's about 2 to 8 hours, depending on what you're doing. You can play Portal 2 for 4 hours on this thing. If you limit to 30 FPS, you're going to be playing for 5 to 6 hours.
Nice. What is included in the box?
It will come with the power adapter. It also comes with the carrying case.
Are there built-in microphones in this for multiplayer chat?
Yep.
Excellent. Is there a cellular connection so I can download games from anywhere, or Wi-Fi only?
Wi-Fi only.
Okay. Is there an ambient light sensor in it to auto-adjust the brightness of the screen depending on the lighting conditions?
Yes, there is.
Excellent. This is a great way to get all these answers. Okay, what operating system does it run?
This is running the new version of SteamOS.
Is it gaming only, or can it run other PC applications? Can it do other things?
Can pretty much run anything you can run on a PC.
So we could go to IGN.com on it.
Absolutely.
Is there a docking station or any way to play it on a bigger screen?
Yes, we're producing a dock. It'll be sold separately.
Is there a price on that yet?
Don't have a price for you today.
Okay. Will that be available at launch?
Don't have that answer for you yet
Okay.
today either.
There's plenty of existing off-the-shelf solutions. I don't think that it'll be, providing this nice experience, but similar functionality.
Any USB-C dock that you can buy off the shelf will work with this, and it'll do USB, Ethernet, and HDMI out, all of the things you would expect from a dock.
What peripherals, headsets, controllers can we use with it?
Anything that can be plugged in via USB and anything that can be plugged in, accessed via Bluetooth. There's an onboard USB-C connection.
Excellent. Yeah, I tried my Apple AirPods earlier and they worked just fine. So don't even have to buy anything else. Love it. And there's also a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack as well. So you got everybody covered. Can I play VR off of it?
It has all the connectivity you would need to do that, but that's not really what we're optimizing the performance for.
So you can try it, but your mileage may vary.
Yep.
Is the short version on that.
That's what.
How about, can you adjust graphics settings within it, or is it sort of locked into a specific settings profile based on the horsepower of the machine?
All the normal options that you'd get in PC games are accessible. That being said, most games start with a pretty balanced graphics settings that work really well out of the box.
Is the core hardware, so not the storage, but is the core hardware upgradable in any way?
Not really. Due to the small form factor, everything is pretty tightly packed there,
Yeah.
not in the regular form factors.
Can it play? Are you locked into Steam, or can you? Because you mentioned this a minute ago, Pierre-Luc. Or can I log into the Microsoft Store with my Game Pass Ultimate account or my Epic Games Store account?
Again, you can really do anything that you would expect a PC to be able to do. So the answer to those things is yes.
Yes, excellent. How about mod support? Again, seems like a yes.
Really the same answer because
Yeah.
PC can do those things. So we've built this device to support all of that.
And the version of Steam that runs on this is the same version of Steam, just adapted with different UI and controls. So all these features, Steam Workshop, and all that built-in support for mods will be there as well.
How about multiplayer? How does that work with the device, be it local multiplayer or otherwise?
Yeah, I think same story as with any PC. So it has connectivity, so you can play multiplayer games. You can play local multiplayer with multiple controllers connected to it. All of the things that you would expect.
So all you'd need for multiplayer on a split screen, same screen multiplayer would be a second controller input, really, via Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or use a phone and the Steam Remote Play app for
There you
the remote
go.
controller.
There you go. Why inline thumbsticks versus offset? That's an eternal debate between, I guess, particularly PlayStation gamers and Xbox gamers. You've settled on inline here.
Yeah, I think this worked really great for the layout that we ended up using, and we have not really seen problems with that layout.
What other buttons are hiding on it? Which is, people can't see the back right now.
There's a set of extra buttons on the back, 4 programmable rear buttons.
How about supply? That's always, as I'm looking over my list of remaining frequently asked questions, gamers have been frustrated, and justifiably so. I mean, yes, we have a supply, we have a chip situation globally, but scalpers and bots have rained on the parade of many a would-be next-gen gamer as well. So do you anticipate, I'm sure you don't want to give numbers here, but do you anticipate being able to meet demand this fall?
We're building a system of reservations that we're going to roll out shortly after this announcement. And we're really going to use that. We obviously can't make all of the devices at once that we think people will want over the next year or two.
Yeah.
So as those become available and as they're manufactured, people will be able to reserve and then purchase those in a queue-based system.
Perfect. I guess the last question would be, what's the reasonable shelf life for this? What is the sort of long tail of it? Is it something that is going to be upgraded? Like, will there be a 2.0 version of this in a few years? Will there be a way where, do you anticipate or want other hardware makers to use the same Steam OS and make their own version? How do you look at this
In
as
a lot of ways,
platform?
we look at this as just a new category of device in the PC space. And assuming that customers agree with us that this is a good idea, we expect not only to follow up in the future with more iterations ourselves, but also for other people, other manufacturers to want to participate in the space.
All the technologies and the OS and the building blocks that we've been working on over the years that kind of make Steam Deck will be available free of charge for people that want to build devices like that as well.
Brilliant. Lawrence, take us home. You were starting to say something as well.
Oh, I was just going to say the same thing as Pierre-Luc.
I'm
We
sorry.
want to make sure people know that the SteamOS 3 is available for free license for any manufacturer that wants to make a similar product.
Brilliant. You heard it here. Gentlemen from Valve, the Steam Deck out this holiday. For more on the Steam Deck, keep it tuned right here to IGN.
All right, so that was the 31 quick questions on the on IGN first, and we're going to take a look at some other stuff here in a second, and we're going to go to the Steam page. Let's see here. So Steam has this this really cool page up with the Steam Deck sort of like rotating on this this little spit. I'm just kidding, it's not on a spit, but it is rotating. And let's take a look at this real quick. So they got it kind of like streamlined, where it's very very small. We're gonna spread this out a little bit so you can actually see it a little better. And it goes straight down the center of the screen. Like they just got these big black borders on either side. So we're gonna make this a little bigger so we can actually see what's going on here. So on the back side there, you see it has 2 programmable buttons on either side, which is really interesting. We have the R1, R2 classics. You got all the regular classic buttons on there, and then they have these 2 touchpads too. And I mean, you can't look at this without seeing a Nintendo Switch. You can't look at this without seeing a Nintendo Switch. It is obviously Nintendo Switch themed. I mean, or what's the term when something inspired? Nintendo Switch inspired. It doesn't have removable Joy-Con, removable controllers, which I find kind of a bad thing. One of the things that I eventually discovered about this unit, the NVIDIA Shield Portable, that came out a long time ago, was that the NVIDIA Shield Portable, as amazing as it was never going to last forever, and eventually the joystick started to fail. One of the buttons started to double press. Basically, the device started to slowly die, and there were no replacement parts. If you want to repair this thing, it's next to impossible, because there's no replacement screens available. There's no replacement buttons, joysticks, anything. I mean, some of the buttons are slightly compatible with the original NVIDIA Shield controller that came out with the tablet. They're very similar, but for the most part, the device just slowly sort of died away. And having the controls built into the machine basically screams that eventually they will break, and eventually, those buttons will need replacing. I just, for the love of God, I hope there's some replacement parts. Steam has not had a very good track record with supporting their products. I don't know if you guys know this, but they've come out with quite a few products. They had the Steam computer thing that they were coming out with a while, and it never really hit the streets because it actually kind of fell on its face before it started. I do think a couple of them got out there. And then there was the Steam controller, and then the Steam Link, and they kind of have this habit of not supporting their products. So why in the world would you spend $3.99 or $5.29 to buy one of these things? I mean, that's the real question, right? Well, the answer to that question is it's moddable. As you heard them say on the video, it's pretty much a fully customizable PC. You could put Linux operating system on there. You could put Windows on there. Apparently, it'll pretty much run anything that you want to put on it. But it runs Steam OS. So I guess at the end of the day, if you wanted to, you could buy this, wipe it. You could install whatever custom operating system you want on this thing, and you could use it as an emulator machine. You could use it as a streaming machine with Xbox Game Pass. You could use it as I don't know. It seems to have a lot of interesting options. If that makes sense. But let's look at the options for purchase, and apparently you can log in to make reservations on the device. Which is kind of interesting. It reminds me of the Tesla when people were putting down $5 down to pre-order the Tesla truck. Anyway, so you can get the 64 gigabyte eMMC, which is a slower type of memory, the 256 gigabyte NVMe, and then the 512 gigabyte NVMe. And the 512 comes with a rather premium price tag of $649. I mean, if we look at the difference in the prices, obviously $399 to $529 is $129 extra for for what is basically 4 times the space, right? So 64 is 128, and then another 64 is 256. So it's like three quarters, or three times, I guess, if you count the original 64 gigabyte. But not only that, but it's faster. So I can't see any reason why you'd grab the 399 model, because the 399 model only has 64 gigabytes. It's the slower type of memory, and 64 gigabytes, there are a lot of games out there these days that have installs that are much larger than 64 gigabytes. Cyberpunk comes to mind, Cyberpunk 2077. So I can't see getting anything except for the 256 gigabyte at the very least. But if you really wanted to use this as a really nice handheld device, you'd probably want a little bit more storage, and then you're looking at the $650, which is how much more than the base model? So 4, 5, 6. So that's $250 more for a little bit more storage. The storage is a little faster, and then it has an anti-glare etched glass on it. You also get an exclusive carrying case. I'm not really sure about that. And then they're talking about the type of processor that's in there. So it's got a Zen 2 RDNA 2 powerhouse, and I believe this is a similar architecture than what's in the PS5. But I can guarantee you that it's not going to put out anywhere near the power as a PS5, because you got to think this is going to be running off of a battery. For instance, a lot of you might be familiar with the difference between a laptop GPU and a desktop GPU. You can have a GTX 1080 laptop GPU, and it might only be 45 watts, and then the GTX desktop GPU is going to be like 115 watts, and there's a huge difference in the performance of the two units. Even though they share the same name, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be anywhere near close to each other in performance. So we've got to guess that the performance of this device is going to be somewhere in between, obviously, a Nintendo Switch and a PS5. So it's somewhere in that gap. Not exactly sure where it falls in that gap. It does have 16 gigabytes of memory. Let's see if we can click on this link right here. Oh, look at that! It's bigger. They made that one a little bigger. Let's bring this down a little bit. There we go. The most powerful gaming handheld, the most gaming power you have ever held. Interesting. And it's interesting, some of the games that they were showing off in particular, because when you look at the games that they chose to show off, what games did they choose to show off? They chose to show off the games that were made for consoles. Because this is a controller on the device, they specifically avoided showing anything that might use a keyboard and mouse. Control was a game that was made for console and was ported over. The other game that they chose on that list was a game specifically made for controller. A lot like the Bastion series, which is also specifically made for controller. And then they have here another game that's made for controller, Star Wars, what is that? Jedi Outcast, I think. Jedi Fallen Order. There you go. So we've got powerful. There's our nice little joystick. And of course, we've got a memory card slot. The problem with this type of memory, though, is it's slow. So you're going to have to pay probably a premium to get yourself a really nice card. They have said that they're going to have a really high-speed reader, but don't confuse that with that it is a high-speed device, because if you buy a crappy SD card, a crappy micro SD card, it's going to have really slow read speeds and write speeds, and it's not going to go any faster just because you have a fast reader. And it's going to get all your Steam library, which I do think is very interesting, because if you happen to have a very large Steam library already, like I do, it's very attractive from that perspective, because you can then play all of your Steam games. So buying the device isn't so much of an investment when you realize, like if you buy a brand new Xbox, you've got to go out and buy brand new Xbox games to play on your brand new Xbox. Otherwise, you're just playing your old games. So, you've got all these brand new games like Cyberpunk 2077, which comes out, and you want to play it on your PS5 or your Xbox Series X or whatever. But you buy this device, you can play all your games hopefully, that you have in your Steam library, which is very interesting. I have no doubt that there are going to be games on this list that it will not play. There are probably going to be games that it struggles with. I don't know exactly what games those are right off the top of my head. Perhaps Cyberpunk 2077, since a lot of the consoles struggle with that. But I have no doubt that there will come a game that this thing struggles with. And so you log into your Steam account. I kind of like this little trackpad thing. I guess it sort of takes the place of the mouse, which is interesting. It's probably nowhere near as good or as accurate as a mouse. You know, you're not going to be able to play like Counter-Strike Global Offensive in competitive mode with it, but it perhaps will be an interesting thing for maybe like some real-time strategy games like Command & Conquer or various things like that. And there's Control again. They're showing off Control. And there's our 3 storage options. And they have a tech specs. So let's take a look at the tech specs. So we got a D-pad, the view button, not sure what that is, thumbstick, 3 mic, 7-inch touchscreen, which is the same exact size, ironically, as the new OLED Nintendo Switch that's coming out. Microphone, thumbstick, menu, ABXY. We got 2 trackpads, not just 1, but 2 trackpads, 2 speakers, so then we know it's got stereo sound at least. Quick access button, which looks an awful lot like the buttons on the Nintendo Switch, so the home button and the screenshot button. And then this one over here says Steam, whatever that does. And then on the top we have the power button, the status LED, the Type-C USB port, which is rather interestingly placed. It's not on the bottom, it's on the top. Like the Nintendo Switch has theirs on the bottom. They were talking about docks in the video, so there are these like USB-C docks that you can get where you plug into this, and it will allow you to do things like hook it up to an HDMI connector or connect it to Ethernet. It would be rather cumbersome and bulky. Trust me, I know, because I actually got an OTG cable for this back in the day and hooked up an Ethernet cable to this, and it was bulky and crazy as all get out, and it just was silly, and I might as well just use my PC. It was just crazy. You got all these little dongles coming out and wires everywhere. So we got our fan port on the top there. I'm really interested to see what kind of cooling system they have. If it's going to be playing the games that they are expecting it to play, it's definitely going to need some very nice cooling. We have the headphone jack, and then the volume up and down, and then of course, you know, the triggers. And then here on the back, you got the R4, R5, L5, and L4. So those, I'm assuming, are like programmable back buttons, and the micro SD card there on the bottom. I'm assuming that these right here are more fan fins. I'm not sure, you can't really see my mouse, but you can obviously right above the micro SD card slot, it has these little things that look like fan fins. And then we've got our actual tech specs here. So we've got the processor is a Zen 2 4C/8T, 2.4 to 3.5 gigahertz. It says 448 gigaflops. Interesting. And then the GPU is an 8 RDNA 2CU 1 to 1.6 gigahertz that says 1.6 teraflops. But you have to keep in mind that anything like this is going to have overhead from the operating system that's running. Like the Nintendo Switch has such a minimalized operating system, it barely does anything. So you can really like utilize the full power of the device while you're playing the game. But things like Windows and SteamOS and Linux, they have this back end, and the back end consumes resources. This back end causes issues when it comes to playing games. So you have to remember that you're not going to be getting the absolute full power of the device when you're playing on like a Windows PC versus when you're playing on something that's made specifically for gaming. Now, I'm not saying that this device is going to be slower than a Nintendo Switch. It looks, by all terms, faster than a Nintendo Switch. It also looks like it's going to consume more power than the Nintendo Switch. So we're probably going to be looking at less battery life than probably the revision model Nintendo Switch, I would say. We have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is very nice, but I'm not really sure that it needs it. A lot of games, especially if you're running them at low fidelity, which is probably what this thing is probably going to have to do. It's not going to be running it at the highest fidelity possible, like for instance my gaming rig. My gaming rig might be running 4K 60 frames per second with like maximum settings, and I'm going to be eating up my entire RAM as far as the video card goes, and my entire RAM as far as the internal memory goes, and like maybe something like Cyberpunk at 4K. But something like this is probably not going to be running anything at 4K. And you're probably never going to eat up that 16 gigabytes. So I'm not even sure why they went with 16 other than just for the wow factor of like, wow, it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. 64 gigabytes of internal storage. I feel like they could have really bumped that up for the bottom model. We're not talking about compressed down Nintendo Switch games that fit on a tiny little cartridge. We're talking about big giant PC games. So it's not these little tiny games that fit on these little cartridges. These games are actually compressed. They have the sound files compressed. The texture files are compressed as much as they can. They cut out the extraneous bits. So if the game's not gonna have 4K visuals, then they cut the 4K visuals out of the package. That's not going to happen for this. This is going to be using the raw Steam games, the games downloaded from PC. So you're looking at like 100 gigabyte install sizes. Like just for laughs, let me go take a look and see how big one of these games is. Let's look at something I probably have installed, like Doom. Oh, no, we don't have Doom installed. Well, let's. I think we can try to install it real quick, and it'll tell us how big it is. So Doom is 74.61 gigabytes. So right there, that's already too big for the internal 64 gigabytes of storage. So you'd have to end up putting that on a micro SD card. And micro SD cards are not going to be anywhere near as fast as that, even that eMMC. The NVMe drive is going to be way faster than the eMMC, so you might actually be able to get some use out of that as far as making your games run fast. Let's see how much Cyberpunk is. So Cyberpunk, where's Cyberpunk? Come on. There it is. Properties, local files, 61.92 gigabytes for Cyberpunk. So the majority of your storage there would be gone with just the initial install of Cyberpunk. And on top of that, there's like a 20 gigabyte update, which is, 59.39 gigabyte update, which is currently downloading, which I've paused. I don't even think I have the storage space on my big computer to install the game. I need to delete some stuff. But that's a lot of gigs. So moving on from the storage space and the micro SD cards, as I was talking about earlier, we have a built-in controller, which you've got to realize that after a certain period of time, the built-in controller is gonna fail. So I really hope that somewhere along the line, they make either some replacement parts, or maybe I'm not sure. I'm really not. Because if Steam gives up support on this device like they have so many other devices that they've created, you're not going to get replacement parts. So if you do buy this thing, I would definitely say take care of it like it's a little baby. Because if you drop it on the ground and your joystick pops off, I don't know. Maybe you could try and get like an Xbox joystick replacement or something. Maybe resolder it on the board. I don't really know. It would be a pain to repair, let me tell you. And then we have the two 32.5 millimeter square track pads. Pressure sensitivity for configurable click strength. They also have haptic feedback, which is nice. So if you're not aware of what haptic feedback is when like maybe you click something on your phone, and the reason your phone doesn't have actual physical buttons to press, so you don't feel anything when you click on your phone. But what happens is when you click on your phone has a haptic feedback built in, and it kind of makes like a shake, or it makes it feel like you've done something. That kind of thing is helpful because it gives you a feedback to know that, what you've done actually was successful. Otherwise, you're just, and nothing's happening, and you're like, did I press the button? Did it work? Did the machine even recognize that I pressed the button? So haptic feedback is pretty great. I remember the first time I got haptic feedback on a phone, and it wasn't the greatest. But they did upgrade it until I got the Pixel 5 now, and the haptic feedback on it is amazing. So when you actually do click on something, you can feel that you're clicking on it, and it really helps you get that notification that you're doing something, as opposed to nothing. So next here we have the display, and the display is 1280 by 800 pixels. So it's not 720p because it's 16 by 10 resolution, but it's very, very close to 720p. 720p would be 1280 by 720. So this is slightly bigger than 720, ever so slightly. 720p is pretty poor for a handheld in the year 2021, especially for $649. I would have expected something a little bit better than a 720p screen. It's not just that it's 720p, it's that it's not anything else. Like on a computer monitor, you can change the resolution between, if I wanted to dumb it down for a little bit, play a really, like I downloaded this game and it's just too much for my computer and I want to make it so that I can play this game, I could lower the resolution to 720p and I can change the graphical settings and I can make it work. But if you're stuck at 720p, that would be like having the best gaming computer in the world, but you're stuck with like an old CRT television as your monitor. Like, you're never going to go higher than what that monitor is, and no matter how good your graphics are, no matter how high your frame rate is, your graphics are always going to be stuck at whatever that old CRT monitor is capable of displaying. So, that would be maybe one thing that you would upgrade. You'd go, okay, well, my monitor kind of sucks. Maybe I'll go get a 1440p monitor so I can actually look at this stuff in some high fidelity. So there we're stuck at a really low resolution. But maybe it's a good thing. Maybe if you're playing Cyberpunk 2077, maybe the system can't handle the game at 1080p or can't handle the game at 1440p. So maybe then at that point, playing it at 1280 by 800 isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that is a good point for having a 720p screen. But let me also provide you with the bad point. So let's say you're playing an older game. Let's say you're playing something like Counter-Strike Source. Counter-Strike Source can run on a potato of a computer these days. And you install Counter-Strike Source on your computer, you get it running, and 720p is your cap on your resolution. You can't go any higher than 720p. You got like 500 frames per second, but you can't go any higher than 720p, which would really suck. Or let's take another game, something that's not a first-person shooter. Let's say you're playing the original Deus Ex Invisible War. That came out back in 2003 or something like that. So the game is going to run like really good on anything you put it on. But again, you're stuck at 720p. You can't go above it. I think that kind of sucks. I feel like in 2021, we should have moved on by now from 720p screens. And even if they're saying, that the system can't handle anything higher than 720p, we should have at least had a system that could change based on the requirements of the game. If you're playing a really old game that can play, like you could play 4K 60 FPS on this game and your computer would barely even bat an eye. These are the kind of games that would play on this amazing. Emulators, things that this system could just smash without an issue. But the reason why I can think of in my head why they stuck with 720p was so that people didn't, for instance, install Cyberpunk 2077 on it and try and run it at 4K resolution. Because they would have, and it would have failed horribly because the system most likely can't handle that. And then they would have said it sucks. I'm also interested about the cooling system on this thing. I know they don't really have much information on the cooling on this, but a device like this has got to get hot. I don't know if you've ever tried to play a game on your cell phone, like a little doesn't matter. It's just something that eats up your battery, and then you plug in your cell phone to charge it while you're playing the game, and your cell phone starts getting really hot. And it's because charging the battery creates heat, playing the game is creating heat, and the two heats are just adding together cumulatively, and it makes things really crazy. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the heat created on this, because I feel like a lot of people are going to be using this plugged in, maybe like near a wall outlet, maybe laying in bed, for instance. It'd be a very interesting something to use at nighttime when you're going to sleep. And it's gonna have to put out some crazy heat to play the games that they're talking about playing, and it's also gonna put out some crazy heat while it's charging too. So a little bit worried about that. It does have Bluetooth, which is pretty sweet. They said it's gonna be able to connect most Bluetooth headsets. That is definitely something that the Nintendo Switch lacks. The Nintendo Switch never had Bluetooth capability, and it also has dual band Wi-Fi, which is nice. I mean, pretty much every device comes with Wi-Fi nowadays. If it didn't come with Wi-Fi, I'd be surprised. It also apparently does not have any type of cellular support, so you're not going to be able to, like, connect on the go and do streaming that way. I mean, you could always tether it to your cell phone, but I'm not really sure how well that would work out. So yeah, we got our stereo there. It's got the dual microphone array. Hopefully, maybe it'll do some type of voice chat. Would be kind of nice. So here we have our power input is a 45 watt USB Type-C connector. So very similar to what you would charge your cell phone with. If you have a Pixel 5 or one of the brand new Samsung phones or something like that, they probably came with a little white charging brick, which is about 45 watts. The battery is a 40 watt hour battery with 2 to 8 hours of gameplay. So a very wide range there. 2 is most likely if you're playing a game like Cyberpunk 2077, which is going to be pushing the game, the system as hard as possible. And then 8 hours is obviously if you're going to be playing something like Tetris. So here we see it supports UHSI, SD, SDHC, and SDXC. So if you do get a micro SD card for this thing, you're definitely going to want to get one that's fast. I do have a video up on my YouTube page already that goes over the speeds of the cards if you're interested. I'll make sure that's in the link on the YouTube channel when I upload this. 669 grams. I want to see how much that weighs in pounds. I'm not a grams person. Grams to pounds. I am in the United States. Sue me. All right, so 669 grams is approximately 1.474 pounds. So about 1.5 pounds is how much this thing weighs. That's a little heavy. I wonder how much the Nintendo Switch weighs. I'm sure somebody has that sitting around. Nintendo Switch weight. 0.66 pounds without the Joy-Cons attached. 0.88 pounds if they are attached. So we're looking at not even a pound for the Nintendo Switch. So if the Nintendo Switch is not even a pound, this device is going to be, what, twice that? Let me run that on a calculator just to be sure. So I think it's almost twice the weight of the Nintendo Switch. So 1.474 divided by 0.88. Hold on, let me do that a little bit differently. 0.88 times 2. So yeah, 1.76 would be the twice the weight. So it's roughly a little under twice the weight of the Nintendo Switch. That seems kind of heavy. It's probably got a pretty large copper block in there, I would assume. Copper would definitely make it heavier. Let's see what other information they have here. Hardware page. So it has a gyro built in. Gyro with IMU and capacitive touch thumbsticks on board. The deck helps you aim better by physically positioning the device. You can achieve more precision than using a thumbstick or trackpad alone. Obviously, it's going to have a touch screen, so it's going to have multiple input abilities. You got the controller for input, you got the touch screen for input, you got the trackpads for input, and then, of course, the gyro is going to be for input, probably when you're playing first-person shooter games. Why does that thing look absolutely massive in his hands? Like, am I wrong about this? It looks absolutely massive in his hands. Like, it's just ginormous. I guess, the Nintendo Switch screen is only just a little bit smaller than this. So it's like, I think this one is like 6.1 or something, and that one is 7. So when I hold this in my hands, you know, it looks sort of big, but I don't know. This seems like the Joy-Con part. Like if I were to, let me give an example here. It almost seems like the Joy-Con part is like twice the size. Like as if it were two Joy-Cons like on top of each other. That's what it kind of seems like. Like it's almost like the double the thickness of a Joy-Con on each side. That's really interesting looking. So you can hook up a dongle to it and essentially turn it into a computer. Which is kind of interesting. Like if you were to use this as like your main PC and you didn't even have a real PC, you just got yourself a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor, and when you got home from work or you got home from your job or whatever, you just plug it into your monitor and you set it up and you start playing. Like that would be kind of interesting. But I'm curious if the resolution is stuck at the same resolution that the screen is stuck at, because that would be kind of silly. Apparently, you can hook up 2 controllers and you can play multiplayer. And they said there was going to be a dock, but they said the dock wasn't going to be available at purchase. So that seems kind of silly. It's basically just a powered USB-C hub, as you can see here. So they're not really making like a special dock like the Nintendo Switch is that you would have to have. You know, it's just an extra. See here it is again, and let me just kind of highlight this. So the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con is probably like that top button right there above the Joy-Con, the joystick. Like if you cut that straight down, that's about how big a Joy-Con is. So the sides of this thing are literally 2 times the width of a Joy-Con, so very, very large. And then even though it has a 7-inch screen, which is bigger than the Nintendo Switch's screen, there's a huge bezel. I mean, just a monstrous bezel on that thing, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because it's just ginormous. And I don't know, it's definitely going to feel really meaty in your hands. I'm going to tell you that much. So let's take a look here. We already looked at the overview, the hardware. Let's look at the software. So it's probably going to be running the Steam OS, which we've seen before on the Steam Link, and it's kind of like a Linux operating system, from what I understand. Although they did say you could install Windows on it, so if you wanted to go that far. Quick access, search, gameplay. A new Steam operating system. On Steam Deck, your games run on a different operating system than the one on your desktop PC. It's a new version of Steam OS built with the Steam Deck in mind and optimized for handheld gaming experience. It comes with Proton, a compatibility layer that makes it possible to run your games without any porting work needed from developers. For Deck, we're vastly improving Proton's game compatibility and support for anti-cheat solutions by working directly with vendors. Hold on to your butts. I don't want to hold on to my butts. All right, we already looked at the tech specs. And then we have this developers here. No porting required. The Steam Deck runs OS 3.0 thanks to Proton. Your build will likely work right out of the box. To learn more about how to test your game. So this is specifically for the developers of games. It's interesting. And then, of course, you can reserve a unit for $5. As we were talking about earlier, it's kind of silly. I feel like this device is going to have a lot of uses. Will it have specific? Will it blow up specifically for the use that Valve is marketing it for? Maybe not. But if you can install Windows on it, if you can install custom operating systems on there, if you can do what you want with it, I imagine this device is going to have a really large scene with the modding community. I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel specifically about the NVIDIA Shield and the NVIDIA Shield Portable and the NVIDIA Shield TV Pro and so forth and so on. And that device is one that people took to heart for emulation and custom ROMs and things like that, which is very interesting. But this particular device seems like it is in the same vein and could very well be, the next NVIDIA Shield Portable 2. The NVIDIA Shield Portable 2 actually was a real device. There was a unit that somebody found, but it was barely functional. But I didn't hate this NVIDIA Shield Portable. I bought this back in 2013. I got my shirt with it when I bought it. I did an unboxing video. I was so excited for this device. I played it on camera. I streamed Transformers Cybertron. Even to this day, it's still one of my most viewed videos on YouTube. And I foresee this device being very similar to the NVIDIA Shield Portable. It is going to come out. There's going to be a lot of people who are interested in it for modding purposes. There are going to be people who buy it for the purpose that Steam is selling it for. But there's going to be a lot more people who are more interested in, taking it apart and putting better thermal grease on it and making sure the cooling system is as fast as it can be and overclocking it and all those interesting things. I definitely will be following this device as time goes on, and probably going to put out some more videos on it. I'm actually even thinking of getting one of these. I really don't want to pay $649 for that 512 gig unit, but I can't imagine myself buying the 64 gigabyte one either, because it's just not enough space. Even with a micro SD card expansion, I don't see that being viable. So at the very bare minimum, I'm looking at the 529 model, which is still very expensive. I mean, I get that the 399 model is probably price point there because they're trying to compete with the Nintendo Switch, but it's a completely different market. The Nintendo Switch is Nintendo games, and Nintendo games are always going to be amazing. Whether you're a PC gamer or an Xbox gamer or a PlayStation gamer or a Nintendo gamer, you know the Nintendo games are unique and very fun, and there are more oftentimes than not very few alternatives to the amazing games that Nintendo can put out. So, it's not, this Nintendo Switch didn't blow up specifically because it was an amazing handheld. It blew up because it has Nintendo backing it, and that's really all there is to it. And it's really funny that this device should be brought up when I'm talking about the new Steam Deck, because this device, the NVIDIA Shield Portable, is literally the predecessor to the Nintendo Switch. A lot of people may not know this, but the NVIDIA Shield Portable came out, then the NVIDIA Shield Tablet came out, and then the NVIDIA Shield TV came out. And when the NVIDIA Shield TV came out, Nintendo was so impressed, they contacted NVIDIA, and they're like, hey, we want you to make us a handheld. And that's where this was born. And when this was born, this died. And this didn't die because it was terrible. This died because Nintendo paid NVIDIA Shield, a ton of money to basically, hey, if you're going to make us this and a Nintendo Switch, we're going to need you to stop producing the NVIDIA Shield Portable. And that's really all there was to it. Well, I'm going to go play some Diablo, as I always like to do. And I will keep my eyes on this, so keep your eyes on my channel for future updates. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.